2008 was a weird time. Obama became president, global recession. I was in the movie theater watching Wall-E. But more importantly, was the release of Burnout Paradise.
Probably my favorite racing game ever made. A game that I find to be really good, but also has quite a few problems that I never really even considered until recently. Even since I was little, I've been in love with this game. Ever since the moment I played it on my uncle's PS3 for the first time. I was sat in front of my TV screen, and I knew what I was about to play was a banger. And after playing it again in the big 2025, I can confirm, this is a banger. And trust me, I know bangers. I've talked about this game in the past, but I really did not give it the time of day that I feel like it deserved. Well, that could be said about the entire series for that matter, but also my opinion on this game has definitely shifted and is more defined than what it once was, and I feel like I can fully understand this game and the few issues that I think hold this game back. And I've played this game a lot, like a lot. This year, I had unlocked the Platinum Paint in the Steam version, 100%ed it, and put in roughly 50 hours into the game on PC. On Xbox, I have about 35 hours on the remaster, and then the original version on the PS3, I probably put in hundreds of hours growing up. I say all of that just to put in perspective that I played this game quite a bit, and to kind of justify this video's existence, and I feel like I've had enough experience with this game to where I can almost analyze the game to an extent, but that's not really what this is. I just want to talk about this game and talk about a game that I love, without repeating the mistakes I made the last few times I talked about a racing game on this channel. Everything I say from here on out, besides maybe a couple factoids if I feel like sharing any about this game, are purely just my opinion, so feel free to disagree, and if you do disagree, let me know what your stance on this game is. But let's keep it civil, because something I find lost with game discussions these days is the lack of respect between one another in the conversation, but I am open to hearing other perspectives on this game, as I do know many will disagree with what I say in this video. With all that said, I just want to talk about one of my favorite games of all time, so if you could join me as I talk about Burnout Paradise, would you kindly? So we're just gonna get right into this and address the elephant in the room. The title of this game is just a straight up lie. Burnout Paradise, Paradise City. The grass is hardly green, and there is no girls to even be seen. Not even men. Something that always catches me off guard with this game is just how lifeless Paradise City can look at times. I don't think Paradise City is ugly. In fact, for a game that came out in 2008, if you can look past the Vaseline all over the screen, it looks beautiful. But the name is just so misleading. I mean, look at it. I'd hate to live here. I also don't think Paradise City is a bad open world, at least not entirely. It's not perfect, and if anyone said they don't think it belongs in the top 5 best racing open worlds, I'm not gonna argue with you. You might have a point. But I gotta say, there is something here to appreciate. With a couple good points of interest that you can mess around at, my personal favorites being the dirt track, that never gets used for any of the races in this game, and the quarry, because it's just fun to do stunts here. And of course, you can't forget the Wildcat Stadium that you can just drive through. That looks pretty small. And there's many other ones that I feel like just aren't utilized as anything more than just something to fill out the map. The map consists of different sectors from downtown Paradise to Harbor Town. I like Harbor Town. You can drive through a ship. There is even Silver Lake. I don't think it's the one from Burnout 3. I think it's literally just a nod to the game and nothing more, but hey, that's cool too. Every sector even has their own sub-district that genuinely just does not matter at all. But they named one of them Motor City, and I liked that. And the traffic is somewhat dynamic between each sector. Downtown Paradise usually has the highest traffic density, that being like maybe 10 cars on screen at once, and then White Mountain, which as you'd expect, you're not seeing a car for like at least 15 miles. And just like any open world racer, the game is littered with breakables all throughout the map, like billboards, gates, and you even have these super jumps, which give you some pretty cool slow motion clip and taking pictures of your car doing the jump. For some reason on the original version of the game, it just goes black and white. I don't know why. The remaster doesn't do this. Later versions of the game don't do this. I have no idea why this happened. But I actually really appreciate the breakable gates. or what Burnout Paradise likes to call smashes. These yellow gates are placed all over the map, and most of them lead to some sort of shortcut or POI you can come back to later, which is another thing most open world racers have, or at the very least should have, shortcuts, which Paradise City kinda has a lot of. Some are way more noticeable in races than others, some are even more useful than others. Burnout Paradise isn't the first or even the only racing game to have shortcuts, I understand that. But it really reminded me of something I feel is missing from games like Forza Horizon, but especially in modern Need for Speed games, as Need for Speed Underground, Underground 2, and even Most Wanted all had shortcuts that you could use, and they actually worked out in your favor a lot of times. But I really liked that these are tied to a collectible of sorts. Not only were you incentivized to explore for game progress and achievements, but also to discover actual gameplay advantages. While I'm sure many are tired of open world racers littering their maps with pointless breakables such as billboards and such, but I think if we got more stuff like smashes, things that benefited the player, giving them an advantage that they could remember for future races and such, I just don't think nearly as many people would mind. A lot of them do tend to lead towards a billboard, however, which can still be used in events, the bad one that is, but can still be seen as an aspect that can help you, I guess. When the game originally released back on the PS3 and Xbox 360, like many racing games of the time, the game would have lots of real-life advertising, in this case, with billboards. You had your Burger King ads, billboards that said Vizio, or is it Vizio? I don't know, I've heard both pronunciations, so someone can correct me in the comments. And of course, Barack Obama. You can't break these, however. You can only break the Burnout Paradise specific billboards, though that idea should have absolutely been considered. I think it would have been really funny driving through a Burger King billboard. Apparently this game and Need for Speed Carbon both endorsed Obama as president, so take that for what you will. I think Paradise City as a map is pretty well designed, all things considered, especially for an arcade racer like this. The roads actually have space for you to actually drift and take turns without flying off the track and going off-road into a tree. I can completely understand the skepticism towards the idea of an open world Burnout game, because I will say I still don't think the track design in 3 and Revenge is topped. I think those two games have great track design, but I don't think Paradise City is all that bad in hindsight. I do gotta talk about one main gripe I have with Paradise City, even though it's more of a technical issue: nighttime. There was even fog and haze in this game too, because they just did not want you to see. These things were added post-launch in the bikes update, and I think they forgot that cities tend to have street lights that work. In some areas, the lighting is generally okay, but a lot of the time it is difficult to even see where you're going, which makes racing in the game a pain in the ass. The issue is somewhat resolved in the remaster, still doesn't look great, like at all, but it's a little bit easier than what it was before, so take that for what you will. And it isn't even like this game has terrible lighting all throughout, because the sunrise, oh my god, that looks beautiful. What happened? Even on Big Surf Island, the street lamps just do not work. They look like they're on, but they're not. This is a city that runs on non-functioning street lamps. How do they even get anything done once the sun sets? How do you even live? Oh yeah, Big Surf Island. I mean, it's pretty, I guess. Never really cared much for Big Surf Island. Not that it's bad, I just never had the DLC growing up, so I just never played it until the remaster came out. It's also really small, you don't have many places to go to. Overall, I think the maps are visually gorgeous for 2008, even pretty well designed for an arcade racer, and even fitting for Burnout's formula to an extent, but it's not perfect. It still just does not feel like a paradise. If anything, the world feels lonely, empty, maybe even hollow. Yes, there is a ton of traffic from time to time, but it's not nearly as dense as, say, a Midnight Club LA, which came out the same year. Not that I want it to be as dense as a Midnight Club LA or even a Midnight Club 3, but I feel like you could have added more traffic. It makes sense to feel this way whenever you drive through Silver Lake or White Mountain, but for me, this feeling follows me even in the more dense areas. Hell, I even feel similarly when I'm in Big Surf Island. I'm not too sure what the cause of this would be. The lighting, especially at nighttime, definitely doesn't help, but I feel like it's more than that. Maybe the lack of racers throughout the map, or dynamic NPCs. I know every open world racer has roaming racers sprinkled throughout the map, but I feel like Burnout could have done their own spin on it, which they did, and I'll talk about it later. But why don't we discuss some of the other aspects first? So Burnout Paradise is a racing game, right?
And as any racing game does, they have cars. Sometimes. In my original Burnout video, I claimed the game had like 150 cars. I'm not too sure where I got that from, because looking at the game now, the remaster at least, that's just not true. There is a lot of cars though, make no mistake, but it's more like 139 when you add it up. In the base game, there's 35 cars with a variant for every single one that can be unlocked via beating each car's corresponding burning route. There is also a total of 6 carbon cars, which are basically another variant, except a million times better than the original. However, all except for one are unlocked through the main game. One of them is unlocked through completing all these free burn challenges online, so I don't really care about that. Almost all the cars feel pretty good to drive for what it's worth. The handling model is about what you'd expect for an arcade racer like this, pretty similarly to the older Burnout games. I do think I find Burnout Revenge to be the best game when it comes to handling, however, but some cars handle more sluggish than others, and others are more nimble. Take the Hunter Cavalry for example. It's the car you get at the start of the game, and it doesn't handle great, but for a muscle car, and especially a car at the start of the game, I think it makes sense. However, take the Nakamura SI7. Why does it feel like this? I'm not the only one that has commented on this, but I'm still utterly confused by this car's existence. I mean, look at it. You would never guess that it handles the way it does. It feels way too sluggish for its own good. And it's even funnier because take the Kitano Hydros Custom for example. This car is very nimble with its handling. It feels really good to drive, and it makes sense for the kind of car that it is. Other cars, while they aren't sluggish or nimble, they're just frustrating to handle. My personal favorite cars in the base game gotta be the Akusa GT, the Watson V16 Revenge, the Krieger 616 Sport, the Kitano Hydros Custom especially. Oh, and most definitely the Toge Sport. That is an all-timer. There is even the truck, and I really love this thing just because of how much of a beast it is in Road Rage. You're basically invincible. Nothing can take it down, it seems like. Not even other trucks. My other favorite is definitely the Inferno van. Yes, they named a van after me. I'm special. You're not. Get over it. Something I've always found funny about this van is that when you're driving, the engine just constantly knocks. It's kind of funny, I love it. Of course, there is the variants that I just mentioned, and for the most part, a lot of them are either better or the same as their original counterpart, but with a different design on them. Unless you are the Takedown 4x4 Dirt Racer, which apparently has a lower speed than its original. Yeah, so each car has stats. I'm not exactly sure what any of it really means. You have speed, boost, and strength stats. Obviously, speed means how fast it can go, boost is presumably how good the boost is, I'm not really sure, and strength is how many times you can die in Road Rage. There is a Reddit post I saw, which I'm going to link in the description below. This guy looked at the vehicle stats within the files. Give it a read. It was pretty interesting because based off what this guy says, apparently no car in the game can top 200 miles per hour. The strength stat is really only relevant in Road Rage and Marked Man events, but outside of it, it means literally nothing. Each car comes equipped with boost, as well as I just mentioned there is a boost stat, so of course the game has boost. And there is one of 3 different kinds. Speed, which is more akin to what was used in Burnout 1 and 2. It can only be used once it's full, and if you use it all in one go, you can get a burnout. Hey, look at that. That's the name of the game. You can chain burnouts together, which is really hard to do sometimes because the game just does not know whether it wants to let you chain a burnout or not, because even if you don't ease up on the buttons, sometimes the game just tells you to fuck off even if you're driving perfectly. The second boost type is Aggression. This is my personal favorite. It's similar to what we saw in Burnout 3 and Revenge. Kill a guy, get more boost, and extend the bar to have more boost. Crash, your boost cap gets lower. The third boost type is Stunt, which is like Aggression, but you get less boost on takedowns, and more from just doing random bullshit. And it's green. There's also cars that have no boost at all. Only 2 of them, and they are in multiplayer, and that's it. You can't use them in single player at all, so who cares? Except this one car that I forgot the name of. Oh my god, this thing is so fast. It is actually a nightmare trying to control. It is so fast, it's horrifying. But with the DLC, we saw the boost special cars, which were 2 cars with 2 different kinds of boost. Locked boost, which basically, once you use it, Have fun. Then there is the switchable boost. Bet you can't guess what that one does. Both of these are neat ideas, but honestly, I'm not too distraught about them not being more integrated into the game because they really do just come off more as gimmicks than anything else. I don't know. I can't really see much of a use out of the switchable boost, and especially not out of the locked boost. That one seems even more useless. Oh yeah, and you can crash cars, by the way. It's absolutely beautiful. I love the crash cams. People hate the crash cams, and I blame that mostly on a game like Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012. Those ones felt pointless, but here, even if it's supposedly toned down in the remaster and in later updates of the original version, it still is just fun seeing what damage you did to your car from clipping it against a wall or random traffic. Being able to see the car just get smashed into pieces, lose all its wheels. It's fun. Or you can watch your car get into the most absurd accident possible and then drive away like nothing happened and have it look like the most undrivable piece of garbage imaginable. Sometime after the game released, the game got DLC and updates. What a surprise. And quite a bit at that. There is the legendary cars, which are reminiscent of some movie icons. The Knight Rider knockoff, I said in the original video, was the best car in the game, and I'm still standing on that. Of course, I didn't realize how good some other cars were, but I still think this is a top contender, even if it's literally just the carbon version of the Carson GT concept, but with some style to it. Of course, there was the boost specials that I already talked about. There is the toy cars, which are just a gimmick, and nothing more. They're fine, really. They're cute, but they're just a gimmick. Police cars. If you're only sticking to single player, then yeah, it's just another gimmick, really. However, in multiplayer, they are required for a mode called Cops and Robbers. And in one of the earliest updates, they added bikes to the game. They are fine. I wasn't blown away or anything, but they are not bad. Growing up, I never even really used them at all. Not for any reason other than wanting to use a cool car. But I kind of enjoyed them for what they were, albeit finding them to be a pointless addition, in my opinion. I don't think they really add much to the game. They handle really well, being able to take tight turns, round corners with absolute ease. They don't have boost either, however, and I don't know. I just don't find them as fun to use, but they aren't bad at all. I can see someone enjoying the bikes in this game. However, when you crash in a bike, it's just not the same. However, both cars in the base game and bikes even come with their own progression. Something that I feel racing games need to get down almost more so than other games is the progression. You don't want it to be too drawn out and tedious because that makes it unfun, but you don't want it to be non-existent in being able to get through the game in mere like 2 hours. At the start of the game, you're given a learner's permit or whatever, but after winning one event, you are given a driver's license, and you progress it by simply winning events. Win a certain number of events, you level up your license, and are given a new car. However, you also unlock other cars by reaching certain win milestones, if you can even call them milestones. The cars you unlock after winning a number of events are placed into the world, in most cases literally right in front of you after you win the event that unlocked that car, and you are tasked with finding them and brutally murdering them. I really love this idea. We're mentally deranged in this bitch. Take your sensitive ass back to Need for Speed, you dumb baby. My only real issue is that the car you need to destroy is usually always spawned right by you. And if you miss it, give it maybe about 5 to 10 minutes and they will reappear eventually. They end up respawning if they get in an accident, and it's usually always right by you. The difficulty of destroying each car is also very inconsistent. Some early cars sometimes take me longer to actually take down than some of the late game cars. It's really weird. I think the idea is great and makes a good use of the game being open world, though I kind of wish we had more drivers like this, but throughout the world, not just being restricted to only progression. However, I do also wish the cars actually tried to hide, kind of like being a marked man. I don't know. I think that could have made it a lot more fun. I also wish the AI was just smarter too altogether, instead of just crashing into the most avoidable shit. Despite that though, I kind of wish we had these roaming racers throughout the map. Genuinely, I think it would help the world feel more alive. They don't have to be at every corner, but just a couple of them here and there in every sector, and not just keeping them only for unlocking cars. I think that would have improved the experience a lot. There's not much else to say about the progression, really. There is other licenses. There's the Big Surf Island license and the
bike license, while it is similarly to the regular license progresses based off wins, and you don't really level up the bike and Big Surf Island license. Those ones are basically just keeping track of your completion status. Now, these are some of the most important aspects to get right in a racing game, alongside the track design, cars, and progression, as I already mentioned. And the Burnout series is a franchise that I would argue had a good variety and well-designed events. So how did Paradise live up to this mantle? It's difficult, let's put it that way. Let's talk about the undeniably best event in the entirety of the game and even the franchise, Road Rage. Mode so good, it's been perfect ever since its introduction in Burnout 3. It's kind of impressive how every iteration of this mode has just been good and nothing less. But this mode really works well in the open world. You can go wherever you want and you will be greeted with opponents. And this is the only mode where the AI will actually drive through the shortcuts. I'm serious. I've noticed this and it bothers me. Then there's Marked Man, which I think is overall pretty good. At first, I was thinking it was much easier in the remastered than the original, but I went back to the original and no, it's just as easy in that version as well. It's really the only mode that I thought would have been at least a bit challenging, but it's really not that bad. Burning routes and the bike equivalent, which was burning rides and midnight rides, burning routes being locked to specific cars. However, burning and midnight rides are restricted to the time of day in-game, which makes sense as they probably felt the need to show off the day-night cycle. These are absolutely fine. I actually kind of like them. They're almost like time trials. You're just trying to race from one area to the other within a certain time frame. Though I gotta be honest, I think the burning and midnight rides are way more forgiving than the burning routes. But let's talk about the thing most people expect to be done well in a racing game: the racing. In the base game, the racing is designed differently from that of Midnight Club with its checkpoints and the Need for Speed games at the time with blocked off tracks. No, you can go wherever you want and the game won't stop you. And to an extent, sounds like there's actual freedom here. That is until you actually play the game. Of all the events this game has, this one, while I don't think it's the worst or even bad by any means, it's the most disappointing. For starters, the opponent AI is either brain dead or just refuses to hold a lead to save their life. I don't like discussing difficulty because people like to tell me that it's a skill issue, but I went back and played the original version and compared it to the remaster, and yeah, racing just feels so easy. Even growing up, I couldn't remember a time where I struggled with races. I ended up only finding the races to start actually feeling like somewhat difficult or even a challenge or anything like that was after I 100%ed the game and used a car that I unlocked at the beginning. Each race is a sprint race, at least in the base game. Big Surf Island is more checkpoint based because there's fuck all to go to over there. But in the base game, you are forced to race from one place to like 8 different landmarks throughout the map, and it usually gets repetitive pretty fast. You don't even drive through Wildcat Stadium during this. The game doesn't tell you where you should go directly, except for the flashing loud and beeping sign at the top of the screen. Yeah, just ignore that. It doesn't tell you what to do at all. The only races I found to even have somewhat competent AI from start to finish were the duels. Those races pit you against one driver who has the exact same car as you. Not a new thing for this series, but they actually know how to keep up to an extent. They know what a gas pedal looks like. Not difficult by any means, but good lord, if only races could be like this instead of me being like a whole 5 miles ahead of them, that'd be so much better. I went back and looked at a lot of reviews on Metacritic and other review sites to see how other people felt about the game, and to just get a general idea of what the consensus was. First off, that was a mistake. Don't look to Metacritic for reviews. They don't know what they're talking about. Not much of value was said, but secondly, I kept seeing that people said the game was just bullshit hard. Now sure, I'm in no place to be saying what is or isn't difficult, and I also have many hours in this game, so this game is basically second nature to me. But when I went back to play the game in its 1.0 state, tried to via emulation at least, the AI acted the exact same. I had recently replayed Burnout 3 and Revenge again a couple months back as of recording this as well, and I genuinely did find the races in those two way more challenging. The AI was more competent. Not hard by any means,
but the opponents actually knew how to drive. I mentioned traffic density earlier when discussing the map, but it really is a non-factor in the events in this game at all. Sometimes someone gets a bit suicidal after a 9 to 5, but there really isn't much traffic during the events. I find that to be a letdown, honestly. I'm not saying that I would prefer it to be like Midnight Club 3 or LA by any means, but I would like there to be at least a little more traffic to keep it interesting, because Burnout 3 and Revenge, they don't have a whole lot of traffic, but there is enough to make it a factor when you're in these races. Now, it could possibly be due to hardware limitations at the time, but in the remaster, there definitely could have been more traffic overall. Something I didn't even consider at first too was the lack of variety in these races as well. It's, as I said, just all sprint races, so traditional circuit races, they're gone. Even on Big Surf Island, when Big Surf Island uses checkpoints, it still is not really a circuit race at all. Grand Prix are ultimately gone, which makes sense since there's just not enough track variety to justify its inclusion. But you want to know what really grinds my gears? What really makes me mad? Eliminator races are nowhere to be seen, and that just makes me disappointed. Eliminator races are probably my favorite in Revenge and even 3, as they were the most hectic and really embodied what Burnout was in my opinion. That being pure chaos. And while Burnout Paradise I think very much embodies that sentiment entirely, this type of race just being excluded from the game doesn't really sit right with me, nor do I think it makes sense at all, really. And honestly, that's just my biggest problem with it, is that racing seems to be the most dry mode out of the entire game. Stunt runs, while I'm not a fan of them, at least they have something going for them. But racing, you do it the most out of all the events in the game, you do the most of them in the single player if you wanted to go for 100%ing it. But even just playing it, there is just far more races spread throughout the map than there is compared to any other event. And if they would have at least tried to experiment with different kinds of races, even if they didn't bring back Eliminators or Grand Prix or anything, I think that would have been fine. And if they could have made the AI, I don't know, progressively get harder, but make it more of a balance, so as you're playing the game, it doesn't feel like you're steamrolling it, and then once you get to the 100%ing the game and you replay an event, that's when it decides to be hard. I don't know. I think a little bit of those kinds of changes definitely could have improved the racing in this game a lot. The last event in this game, in my opinion, is absolutely the worst one, and that's stunt runs. I hate doing these. They're so tedious. Most of them aren't even hard, but then you get to the very end and the game just says, show me a mill, and I can't even be bothered to do these. These events put on the biggest display of what I think the biggest issue with Burnout Paradise's open world is. And it's the fact that you can't instantly restart an event if you fail. If you fail an event or you quit an event, you have to drive all the way back to where you started, even if it's on the other side of the map. Stunt runs are the events I find myself having to restart the most, and it's so irritating having to keep driving all the way back to where I started. And some of these have the dumbest starting points ever, making it not only a pain in the ass to get back to if you mess up, but also just a pain in the ass to do the stunt run to begin with. For the most part, at the beginning, they're not the worst. Towards the end is when the point scaling is not great, but I can see they wanted to challenge the players, so whatever. I'm not really the target audience for this kind of gameplay, so maybe that's why I never really cared for it. For Burnout, I come here for the racing and road rage, but one thing I hate about stunt runs is, like, as I mentioned, the most inconvenient starting points ever. Like, one of them is over in White Mountain and you have like one billboard in the area and like 2 ramps, and that's it. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to explain how stunt runs work. Basically, do stunts, rack up a score. Drifts, oncoming speed, boost, and jumps can all give you points. Big airtime, billboards, super jumps, flat spins, barrel rolls, and burnouts can give you a multiplier, which you're gonna need if you want to win these things. If you ever try to 100% this game, first off, don't. Just don't. Secondly, just get all the stunt runs out of the way first. Don't do what I did and push them aside until you had to do every last one of them. There isn't many of them, 15 to be exact. It's the only event in the entire game that has less than 20 of them in the game, so that's good. One of the biggest sins this game committed that I seemingly refused to acknowledge the first time I talked about this game
was the removal of crash mode. Hell, they didn't even bring back crash breakers either, which I think I'm a bit more distraught about that than crash mode, but I digress. To make up for the lack of crash mode, we have road rule showtimes. And they sure are a thing that exists. They are a bit of fun for a bit if you aren't intending to 100% the game, and just doing them every now and then out of boredom. But man, trying to 100% this game got so tedious trying to do these Showtime road rules. The road rules where you're just basically getting a certain lap time of sorts on a specific road. Those were pretty fun. I still like doing those. I like beating my previous times. But the show times, I mean, technically it is a form of a crash mode, just without any form of thinking. And I won't act like crash mode was some deep puzzle solving mode, but I feel like I kind of miss its existence here, because without it, it puts in perspective how lacking the single player can feel.
This party's getting crazy.
Burnout Paradise was developed more so as a social game from what I've read online. It's very obvious from the get-go with its decision to go open world, the road rules, and even just by how seemingly lacking the single player side of things can feel. And that's where we got Freeburn Online. This is the online multiplayer for this game where you and other players can drive around Paradise City doing a bunch of different things, from racing, road rages, marked man, and the multiplayer exclusive Cops and Robbers mode. And as I mentioned earlier, getting 2 exclusive cars to play around with, one of which having a variant that can be used in offline play, however, and I don't really get why, because it's not even that good of a vehicle anyway. If only the multiplayer was actually playable. I never really bothered much with online growing up, mainly because I didn't know that it existed, but over the years, and after the remaster came out, I would keep trying to play it, and it just barely functioned at all. I tried to give it a real chance for this video so I could actually talk about it for more than 2 minutes, but I wasn't able to experience anything. The game would only run for so long before crashing, and I looked up online, and it seems to have some sort of issue with webcams, OBS, or pretty much any overlays. I have no idea why. However, when I did join into a lobby, it did seem to go fine. And then once this guy joined, I was just stuck in a loop of endless crashing until I made my own lobby where barely anyone joined. It sucks too, because from the little amount I played, it was quite fun. I wasn't talking to anybody, but I found a way of communicating with this one guy, and we just kept taking each other down for no reason. And that was basically the only thing I was able to do, was chase people around in Paradise City, because no one wanted to start a race or anything. Sorry to anyone that expected a much deeper look at the multiplayer. There really isn't much I can say. I don't have the connections to get a full lobby going on a whim. It's a shame that this was the final mainline Burnout game to be released. I know this franchise wasn't as profitable as Need for Speed at the time when this game came out, because they were coming off of some of their most successful Need for Speed games, but I mean, this game released the same year as Undercover, and I will not let any revisionism happen in my comments section. That game sucked. Also, Need for Speed fucking died. However, I do understand a lot of the complaints with this game as the deviation from the formula that the original Burnout games before this had set up prior. It wasn't exactly perfect, as I had already talked about. Even though what I said with the world, especially with it feeling lonely and hollow sometimes, every now and then I get the urge to just boot up the game and drive. Nothing more, just drive. Not starting any road rages or racing or anything like that. Just select a car that I liked, put on the paint job that I wanted, and I would just drive for hours. It was a very interesting experience. Sometimes I would put on my own music, sometimes I'd let the game's soundtrack speak for itself, which a lot of people apparently don't like. I think it's fine. I think there's some pretty good songs in it. In the original and in the remaster, I think it's pretty fine. Overall, I like some of the songs in it. But I don't know. Growing up, I always liked just driving around the streets of Paradise City.
even despite it feeling alone and isolated, sometimes I enjoyed that. I was basically to myself doing what I liked, and then crashing into a wall, and then basically being told to fuck off, but you know, that's besides the point. Honestly though, the entire existence of this video was solely so I could have that little rant about the races in this game, because God, they feel disappointing. It's something I never said in the original Burnout video, but I barely said anything of substance in that video. But after thinking about it recently, after getting 100% for the remaster, and it just bothered me so much. And basically I'm making whatever this is about Burnout Paradise, I guess. And I just wanted to talk about this game again, because I want to talk about games I enjoy playing. I don't want to talk about garbage. I want to talk about things I like. And that's basically it. That's why I made this. And that's all from me. If you have a different perspective on the game, then put it in the comments, I guess. Let's get a healthy discussion going. Follow me on my social medias or something, I guess. Like the video. Subscribe, because I will make more videos eventually. And if you enjoyed the video, good. Now goodbye.